Which Warlock is the best Warlock, and which is the worst? This week, we take a look at every Warlock archetype to determine which Warlock patron will reign supreme, and which one will look more like Vermin Supreme. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese, and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started today, I just want to remind everyone that we are reaching the final stretch of our Kickstarter for our next book, Blackstorm Realms. This book is an amazing campaign setting that will offer you a way to create an open world, or worlds, where your players can explore multiple realms without making the GM do any extra work to figure out how they're connected. For more information on that, click the link in the description to see our Kickstarter page. And as always, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We are right on the edge of 2,000 subscribers, so I think we may even be able to hit 2,000 before we get to December, which is insane. Seriously, thank you all so much for your support. It has been so amazing to watch this channel grow, and it is all thanks to your support. This week, we are going to rank all of the Warlock patrons from worst to best. Like I said in the last video, I am a little nervous about this one because so many people have been asking that I get to this archetype, and now we're finally here. I looked in much greater detail at the Warlock than I really have before this video, and I'm a really big fan. I can see why this class is so popular. The amount of power that is packed into their small number of spell slots is incredible, and each of the archetypes offers a wildly unique playstyle, and due to the strength of the base class, none of them are weak at all. That said, there are definitely a few that stand out to me as stronger than the rest, so let's get into it. At the bottom of the list, in 6th place, I am starting off with the Undying patron. The Undying patron seems to include figures like Vecna and whatever other powerful beings have unlocked eternal life. Your expanded spell list isn't too bad with spells like False Life, which Warlocks actually end up getting a good amount of value out of, Blindness, Deafness, Feigned Death, and Death Ward. At level 1, you get Among the Dead, which allows you to learn the Spare the Dying cantrip and grants you advantage on any saving throws against disease. In addition, if an undead targets you directly with an attack or harmful spell, they have to make a wisdom save against your spell save DC or choose a different target, potentially just wasting the spell if they have no target at all. If they succeed on the save, or if you target it with an attack or harmful spell, then they're immune to this for 24 hours. Basically, undead just don't want to hurt you because you're kind of also undead. I guess undead stick together or something. At 6th level, you gain Defy Death. When you succeed on a death save or stabilize a creature with Spare the Dying, you or the target gain 1d8 plus your con modifier hit points, but you can only do it once between long rests. This isn't too bad, but I kind of wish it were between short rests. It's basically just a single cure wounds, so I don't see why it has to be limited to long rests instead of short. At 10th level, you gain Undying Nature, which allows you to hold your breath forever. You don't have to eat, drink, or sleep anymore, but you still require rest as normal. You also age at a slower rate, 1 year for every 10 years that pass, and are immune to being magically aged. This can be helpful because you can just ignore breathing rules underwater, but also not having to sleep can be nice when taking long rests if you have a DM that likes to ambush the party at camp. And finally, at 14th level, you gain Indestructible Life. On your turn, you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your Warlock level. And honestly, my favorite part is that if you put a severed part of your body back in place, when you use this feature, that part reattaches. I love that imagery. You can only do this once between a short or long rest, so this is basically the feature I was asking for at 6th level, and honestly, it just feels pretty underwhelming. Fighters literally get a better version of this at 1st level with Second Wind. Like, it's actually the exact same thing, but with a D10 instead of a D8, and it can't reattach body parts. So yeah, I think they could give this archetype a bit of love because it leaves a lot to be desired for me when put up against the rest of the Warlock archetypes. Next up, in 5th place, we have what I imagine when I think of the Warlock, the Great Old One. When I think of this archetype, I think of patrons like Cthulhu and other beings that will drive you completely crazy if you even look at them. The expanded spell list is mostly focused on utility spells with Dissonant Whispers, Clairvoyance, and Dominate Person. And the utility continues throughout pretty much this entire archetype, starting with Awakened Mind at 1st level, which allows you to telepathically speak to any creature you can see within 30 feet of you as long as they speak at least one language. This one is nice because it offers a line of communication with your party that outsiders can't hear, and doesn't use any action economy like Message does. At 6th level, you gain Entropic Ward. When a creature makes an attack against you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on that roll. If the attack misses, your next attack against that creature has advantage if you make it before the end of your next turn. You can do this once between short or long rests. This one is pretty helpful because Warlocks aren't particularly beefy, so being able to impose disadvantage on attack and potentially gain advantage on your attack can be a pretty nice ability in pretty much any combat situation. At 10th level, you gain Thought Shield, which prevents your thoughts from being read by telepathy or any other means unless you allow it. You also gain resistance to psychic damage, and whenever a creature does deal psychic damage to you, they take that same amount. This one fits really well with the Great Old One theme, though I kind of wish there were a little something extra in there. Psychic damage is so rare in 5e, so there's potential that you could go an entire campaign without ever really using this feature very much. And finally, at 14th level, you get one of my favorite features of any Warlock, Create Thrall. You can use your action to touch an incapacitated humanoid. That creature is charmed by you until a remove curse spell is cast on it until the charmed condition is removed, or you use this feature again. You can communicate telepathically with this creature as long as you're on the same plane of existence. This feature is one of my favorites, not because I think it is super powerful or anything, but I just love the idea of waking up a creature from being incapacitated and suddenly being a huge fan of this creepy Warlock that keeps talking into your head. Honestly, the charmed condition doesn't give this feature a lot of potency, but having an ally in a more roleplay heavy campaign could be super helpful. It doesn't mean they'll fight for you, but there's a better chance that they'll help you out in certain situations. Overall, I love the Great Old One for its flavor, and again, it isn't bad at all because of the power of the Warlock itself. But when put next to the other archetypes, it just falls a little short. In 4th place, I have put the Fiend Warlock. The Fiend Warlock is the most straightforward of the bunch, in my opinion. Devils, demons, burn stuff, etc. And that is reinforced with the expanded spell list, which includes Burning Hands, Fireball, and Flame Strike, and a few other fire spells too. And this archetype honestly gets a fair amount of combat potential throughout its features, starting off with the Dark One's Blessing. This grants you temp HP equal to your Charisma modifier plus your Warlock level when you reduce a creature to 0 HP. And if you've ever played a Warlock or had one in your party, you know that they're often the ones reducing creatures to 0 HP because, well, Eldritch Blast, basically. At 6th level, you gain Dark One's Own Luck. When you make an ability check or saving throw, you can add a d10 to your roll before seeing the roll's effect once per short or long rest. This is a super potent feature. We know saving throws can be huge, so being able to add a d10 to one could be absolutely massive, or at least super helpful very regularly. At 10th level, you can choose one damage type when you finish a short or long rest. You gain resistance to that damage type until you use this feature again, but that is ignored by magical weapons or silver weapons. So, remember how the Great Old One gained resistance to psychic damage at this level? Well, the Fiend can gain resistance to literally any damage type whenever they want. Now, obviously, this one requires knowledge of what you're about to fight, but in general, you could just choose piercing damage, and suddenly you have resistance to every single bow attack. It isn't a ridiculously powerful feature by any means, but it is very, very nice. And at 14th level, you get my actual favorite Warlock feature of any of the archetypes, Hurl Through Hell. And once again, this one is my favorite because of the imagery, but it is also pretty dang powerful. At 14th level, when you hit a creature with an attack, you can use this feature to instantly teleport the target through the lower planes. The creature disappears and hurtles through a nightmare landscape. At the end of your next turn, the target returns to the space it previously occupied. If it isn't a fiend, it takes 10d10 psychic damage as it reels from its horrific experience. You can only do this once per long rest, but that is actually insane and even more hilarious. Keep in mind, nothing in there mentioned a saving throw. You're basically just adding 10d10 damage to one of your attacks, as well as removing a creature from combat for an entire turn. Not even something with legendary saves can resist that. Even more incredible is the imagery of someone hurtling through hell for 6 seconds and then just popping back into reality with a melted brain. Dark, but funny. So yeah, the Fiend is probably the strongest Warlock archetype if you're looking for raw damage output and combat capability, which could maybe put it higher on the list, but I think it fits right in at 4th place. In 3rd place, I have a very utility-focused Warlock, once again, the ARCHFEY Warlock. The ARCHFEY patrons are beings like Titania, Oberyn, and probably some other Shakespeare characters too, but basically any powerful Fey creature. I massively underestimated the power of the ARCHFEY Warlock until I saw one played, and boy do they carry some real power if you lean heavily into that trickery aspect. Your expanded spell list is pretty much entirely utility and control, with spells like Fairy Fire, Blink, Greater Invisibility, and Dominate Person. At first level, you gain Fey Presence, which allows you to use an action to cause every creature in a 10-foot cube around you to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. If they fail, they are all either charmed or frightened by you until the end of your next turn. And you can use this once per short or long rest, so that's nice. Obviously, in a combat situation, being able to fear creatures is extremely powerful, and charming a creature that may turn hostile soon could also be a game changer in a roleplay situation. At 6th level, you gain Misty Escape. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to turn invisible and teleport up to 60 feet to a space you can see. You remain invisible until the start of your next turn, or until you attack or cast a spell. This one is also usable between short or long rests, which we love to see. Not much to say about this one, just that it is a super potent escape tool that doesn't require a spell slot, which is obviously very powerful for a class with limited spell slots. At 10th level, you gain Beguiling Defenses, which gives you immunity to being charmed, and when a creature tries to charm you, you can turn that charm back on them. They have to succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC or be charmed by you for 1 minute or until they take damage. This one's relatively niche, but in the right situation, it can be a hilarious card to pull. And finally, at 14th level, you gain Dark Delirium, which allows you to plunge a creature into an illusory realm. As an action, you can force a creature within 60 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it is charmed or frightened by you for 1 minute or until your concentration is broken or until they take damage. During this illusion, they think they are lost in a misty realm, the appearance of which you choose, and they can see and hear only themselves, you, and the illusion. Once again, this one is usable between a short or long rest. So this feature is basically just a lot of words that you can incapacitate a creature without actually incapacitating it. In combat, you'll be taking this creature out of the fight until it takes damage or whatever. Handy, but nothing too crazy. Overall, this archetype is massively underrated in my opinion. I don't think it gets enough attention because it isn't super flashy, but all of your features recharge on a short rest, your spell list is awesome and can lend itself incredibly well to a more utility and control focused playstyle. In second place, I have put the HEXBLADE Warlock. The HEXBLADE Warlock is unique in regards to patrons because you'll actually be choosing powerful artifacts like Black Razor to lend you their power. Your expanded spell list is very combat focused with spells like Shield, Blur, Smite spells, and Cone of Cold. At first level, you gain Hexblade's Curse, which allows you to use a bonus action to curse a target for 1 minute. While cursed, you gain a bonus to damage rolls against the target equal to your proficiency bonus. You crit on a 19 or 20, and if the target dies, you regain HP equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. This recharges between short or long rests. Basically, choose someone to die, and they'll die, and you'll get some health back. Also at first level, you gain Hex Warrior. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch one weapon that you are proficient with and lacks the two-handed property. When you attack with that weapon, you can use your Charisma modifier for the attack and damage rolls. This is the real bread and butter of the Hexblade, and honestly what puts it so far up on the list. Every complaint I have with Gish archetypes like the Eldritch Knight is completely solved with this feature. At this point, you are a full caster and fully martial, which to me cheapens the drawbacks of playing a Gish in the first place, but that's a topic for another video. For a ranking video, this is simply a very powerful feature. At 6th level, you gain Accursed Spectre. When you slay a humanoid, you can cause its spirit to rise from its corpse as a spectre. It gains temp HP equal to half your Warlock level, it has its own turns, obeys your verbal commands, and gains a special bonus to its attack rolls equal to your Charisma modifier. The Spectre remains in your service until the end of a long rest, and you can't raise another one until you finish a long rest. This one isn't bad, honestly. Spectres can hit pretty hard, especially when granted a bonus to attack rolls. They normally get +4 to attack rolls, but at 6th level, I'll say your Charisma's probably 16 or 18, so when you summon them, they get +7 or +8 to hit, which is really good, especially considering their attacks deal 3d6 necrotic damage. Not too shabby for a little summon. At 10th level, you get Armor of Hexes, which is a very potent feature. If the target of your Hexblade's Curse hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to roll a d6. On a roll of 4 or higher, the attack misses, regardless of its roll. So let's talk about this feature for a second. No matter what a creature rolls, you can use your reaction to make it a 50-50. They can roll a nat 20. But you can use your reaction to flip a coin to see if it hits. That is absolutely insane. Fortunately, you do have to use your reaction, so you can't just spam it out every attack, but you can do it every turn, and that is still nutty. And finally, at 14th level, you gain Master of Hexes. When the creature cursed by your Hexblade's curse dies, you can apply it to a different creature within 30 feet of you, but when you apply it this way, you don't regain HP from the death of the previously cursed creature. Nothing super potent here, just getting some longevity out of your Hexblade's curse in a prolonged battle. But it does kind of open up your options on who to curse, being able to put it on the minions of the fight rather than just the one you'll expect to be alive the longest. The Hexblade is by far one of the strongest archetypes, and for a time, I firmly believed it was the most powerful of them all, but the strength of my number one archetype I think puts it at a solid and confident second place. The best Warlock archetype, in my opinion, is the Celestial Warlock. Pretty straightforward stuff here. Your patron is an angel or some other celestial being. Your expanded spell list is basically all cleric spells with Cure Wounds, Revivify, Guardian of Faith, and Flame Strike. You start things off small with Light and Sacred Flame cantrips at first level, which don't count against the number of cantrips you know. Nice, but cantrips aren't going to be breaking the game anytime soon. At first level, you get the single most powerful feature of any of the Warlock archetypes, bar none, Healing Light. You gain a pool of d6s equal to 1 plus your Warlock level. As a bonus action, you can heal one creature you can see within 60 feet by spending dice from that pool up to a maximum number of dice equal to your charisma modifier at a time. This pool refills at a long rest. So you may ask, Reese, why is this the strongest feature? Well, I'll tell you. Did you notice what spell I didn't mention in the expanded spell list? Healing Word. Generally regarded as the single strongest spell in 5e due to its ability to constantly bring player characters back from the edge of death, but less potent in the hands of a Warlock with only 2 or 3 spell slots the vast majority of the game. So to make up for that, the Celestial Patron Warlock gives you a pool of d6s you can use as a bonus action to do exactly that. Sure, you're not going to be healing your party back to full with Healing Light, but Healing Word isn't powerful because of the size of its heal either. Essentially, you get a slightly, very slightly less potent pool of Healing Words that don't use spell slots, which brings me to the second reason why this is powerful. It isn't a spell, which means if you're playing by the book, you can cast an actual spell as an action on that same turn. So I would even argue that this is better than Healing Word because it opens up the option to cast a leveled spell in addition to bringing an ally back as a bonus action. Anyway, yeah, strong feature, moving on. At 6th level, you gain Radiant Soul, which grants you resistance to radiant damage. Additionally, when you cast a spell that deals fire or radiant damage, you can add your charisma modifier to 1 radiant or fire damage roll of that spell against one of its targets. Weird way to word that, but basically you can add your charisma modifier against 1 target from a radiant or fire damage spell. At 10th level, you gain Celestial Resistance, another crazy feature which grants you temp HP whenever you finish a short or long rest. The temp HP equals your Warlock level plus your charisma modifier. Additionally, you can choose up to 5 creatures and also grant them temp HP equal to half your Warlock level and your charisma modifier. This feature is insane. Think about it. By 10th level, you probably have 20 charisma, so you're granting yourself 15 temp HP and most, if not all of your allies 10 after every short or long rest. That is ridiculously powerful. Just having a Celestial Warlock in your party by 10th level basically increases the party's max HP by a pretty significant amount. And finally, at 14th level, you gain Searing Vengeance. When you make a death save, you can instead just straight up regain half your hit point maximum and then stand up. All at the same time. No action required. In addition, each creature of your choice within 30 feet of you takes 2d8 plus your charisma modifier and radiant damage and is blinded until the end of the current turn. No save or anything, just straight up blinded. That means you can easily walk away from them that turn without them being able to take attacks of opportunity unless they have blindside or something. This one is only usable once per long rest, which, like, duh, it's freaking ridiculous. I don't know how many times you'd even have to use this considering it gives you back half your HP for free. I think you all are seeing my point. This archetype is incredible. I'm not sure it has the potency to be a primary healer, but considering it still gets all the benefits of being a Warlock, a Celestial Patron Warlock can make your party damn near unkillable while also still contributing a bunch of utility and damage otherwise. To me, it solidifies itself very solidly as the most powerful Warlock archetype by a pretty ridiculous margin. Well, that is my ranking of the Warlock archetypes. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. We are nearing the end of these archetype ranking videos, as next video I will be ranking all of the Wizard archetypes, all 12 of them. This will be the final video in my archetype ranking series for now. I may revisit it down the line, but it is coming to a temporary close, which means I need to start making different videos. So please comment below and tell me what kind of stuff you'd like to see. I have several ideas of my own, but I also want to hear from you all because your thousands of brains are significantly more creative than my one. I look forward to hearing your ideas, but until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.